thank you for being here. Congratulations to all the team members. It was a very, very competitive competition. And so you should be very, very proud of yourselves for getting to this point. Just so that you know, everybody has the schedule, and we will ask those who are just participating to please mute your audio and mute your or stop video during the presentations. The judges will then have about 10 minutes to ask some questions. So with that, Maria, do you want to do the introductions, please?
Yes. So, hold on one second. So I want to welcome you to the 5th annual National Collegiate Colvin Case Study Challenge. The challenge is hosted by the University of Maryland, Colvin Institute of Real Estate Development. The Institute was founded and endowed by John Colvin, a Baltimore-based real estate developer, and his wife, Karen, in honor of his mother, Naomi Colvin, who was the first woman to to be licensed as a commercial real estate broker in the state of Maryland. The Institute was established to fund research, industry outreach, and student enhancements for the Master in Real Estate Development degree. This is the 5th year of the challenge, and this year we had 20 submissions. The challenge is to document a recent innovative real estate project within the team's metropolitan region. Unlike many other case study case competitions, this is a post-development case study and documentation of a recently completed project or project phase. The challenge is designed to hone professional skills and reveal the challenge base and understanding of markets, project valuation, finance, urban design, and sustainability, entitlement processes, and operational issues. There are 2 rounds to the competition. In the first round, the teams submit a written case study of an existing real estate development project in their jurisdictions. And in the second round, 4 teams are chosen to present their case study, usually in person, to a panel of industry professionals at the University of Maryland. So today is the second round. And of course, because of the coronavirus pandemic, the competition is being held virtually. The participants will present their case studies to this distinguished panel of judges that includes Michael Johnson, President, Urban Core in Oakland, California, David Rudberg, CEO and President, Horning Brothers, Washington, D.C., Karen McGrath, Assistant Professor, College of Management, Bucknell University in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and Corey Zelnick, founder and CEO, Zelnick and Company, LLC in New York, New York. So with that, I will turn it back over to Carrie so that she can introduce the first team.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry, just have something going on over here and it's making the audio. Okay, so I believe our first group is team 13, correct?
It is.
Okay, so just give me a few minutes and I'm going to move everybody into their breakout rooms. Okay, so you'll get a notification. And I believe Aaron is going to do the slides, so let me take care of this. It's gonna just take me a minute, please.
Okay, we want the judges to stay.
Yes, the judges should stay and team 13 should stay too. But I may have to go get them.
All right, is team 13 here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We can begin our presentation.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. We are Team 13. It's our great honor to be here today. We are presenting a very unique redevelopment project called Empire Stores, located in Dumbo, Brooklyn. So Empire Store is an adaptive reuse redevelopment of a historical industrial warehouse along the Brooklyn's waterfront in Dumbo. It's a public and private partnership between the developers and the Brooklyn Bridge Park. So this is all of the partnerships in this development. The Brooklyn Bridge Park issued a RFP for the Empire Store redevelopment in 2012. Midtown Equity organized a team that won the competition, including the HK organization, the Rockwood organizations, Suman Engineers, and Studio V Architects, which is very known for their urban waterfront architecture. The Empire Stores was transformed from a 330,000 square footage warehouse into a 500,000 square foot of retail, office, and cultural space. It has achieved a record for office rent for the neighborhood in 2014. It was actually one of the most successful adaptive reuse development in the New York City for many reasons. To introduce the site and the historical background more, Dumbo stands for Done Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. During the industrial period, its location between the Manhattan and Brooklyn Bridge made it a center of shipping. So this image shows Dumbo's commercial waterfront in the 19th century. It was full of the shipping and warehouses. Warehouses covered the Brooklyn shoreline and gave it a nickname of the walled city. So after the shipping got declined in the 1950s, Dumbo was slowly abandoned with those massive warehouse left. So Dumbo's cheap, large warehouses start to attract the artists, and then the developer saw the opportunity as well. The developer then began transforming the industrial waterfront into an upscale neighborhood because of its unique location. Dumbo became a historical district in the 1990s. Because there are so many artists moved to the neighborhood, Dumbo is a center for the art as well. This picture shows the Dumbo Archway. This historical architecture is now a location for the film shoots and exhibitions. The Empire Stores really reflects the Dumbo's industrial past. It was built in 1869. Like many Dumbo buildings, it was used for the importing raw products like spices and coffee. This is an image of the brick facade of the Empire Store, and the name of store refers to the 7 storehouses in the building. In the 1950s, the structures was totally abandoned. It joined the state and the National Historical Register in the 1970s. Since then, several redevelopment proposals has been made, but unfortunately, all of them has been unsuccessful, and the building sat vacant for more than 50 years. So come to 2000, the community organized with the state and developed a master plan for the Brooklyn Bridge Park. The park's operating costs are covered by 5 development sites along the park, which is including the Empire Stores. In 2002, you can see this timeline. The park issued their first RFP for the Empire Store. The winning developer proposed a mixed use of the retail and office, and community really liked the program, but the developer failed to start the project. And 10 years later, the park issued another RFP in 2012. After building have a lot of damage from the Hurricane Sandy and needed support, the park called the same retail and office program proposal. But what's more, this time in the RFP is a culture space that tells the story of the industrial waterfront and provide more public access across the length of the site and the more public rooftop space and more community value to the building. Now I will briefly give you some of the market analysis. The market in Dumbo before the Empire Store opened was already in a steady increase. So this is a residential outlook. Because the Dumbo's waterfront, historical architecture, and the distance to Manhattan has made the neighborhood very attractive to the young professionals. You can see in the diagram on the top left corner, the median income from 25 to 44 years is much higher compared to the Manhattan and the Brooklyn. The diagram below shows that in the past 2 decades, Dumbo has seen a huge increase in the residential development as compared to Manhattan and Brooklyn. So office development has followed the residential growth. There are 4.1 million square foot of the office in Dumbo. Because of its history, Dumbo office is almost all brick and beam space, which you can see in the example on the right side. The diagram on the left top corner shows that the Dumbo office asking rent was constantly growing. And this type of industrial space is very much attractive to the creative professionals, financial firms, and tech companies. As shown in the diagram below, the percentage compared to the New York average is much higher. So in 2013, the Brooklyn Tech Triangle proposal was established to attract more tech companies to the area. It is a neighborhood workforce program that partners with the business improvement districts. So in the mid-2010s, Manhattan and Brooklyn competed for the big tenants, and WeWork and Etsy moved their office to the area in 2016. So this is a diagram showing how the office demand in the Dumbo market experienced the growth in the mid-2010s. Midtown South was becoming a tech hub, so it's very important to compare those 2 competing set markets. We can see in the chart that the Dumbo asking rent come very close to the Midtown South rent with the Empire Store's arrival.
Now that we understand the market, we're going to go back to the development vision for Empire Stores. For the 2012 RFP, there were 10 entries, and it came down to Midtown Equities and Two Trees Management Company as the 2 finalists. So Two Trees was already an established developer in the Dumbo market at the time, but Midtown Equities won the RFP with the proposal that highlighted 3 successful components. First of all, they signed West Elm as their anchor retail and office tenant at a record rent when they submitted the RFP, which was a very unusual move. Secondly, they outbid Two Trees. They had more confidence in the retail and office growth in this area and underwrote higher rent numbers. They also had less risk with West Elm already being on board. And lastly, they recognized the importance of public space through their design proposal. So here, as you can see, the original building was a literal wall to the waterfront. And in their design strategy, they wanted to open up that heaviness on the waterfront with a courtyard that created a thoroughfare from Water Street to the south to the waterfront. And in creating this courtyard, they really wanted to maintain the historical facade. So as you can see in this diagram, the facade was maintained. And to create more amenities, they added a 2-story modern glass addition to their rooftop. This was 146,000 square foot, but this addition did not cover that open air courtyard that was created. And so today the courtyard encourages visibility and foot traffic from the park, and it's 5 million annual visitors. So the original floor plan of the building shown here had 7 separate warehouses, and these were separated by 3-foot thick stone walls. As you can see on the image on the right, the building had already suffered extensive structural and physical damage. And so the development team identified existing cracks in these stone walls, and they used these cracks as a starting point to carve openings in the walls to connect the warehouses together. This is the ground floor plan of the new building. As you can see, these walls now have separations to allow people to move between the formerly separated warehouse. As you can see in the stacking diagram here, retail is mainly on the first floor with office above in blue, and the building has 378,000 square foot of office and 65,000 square foot of retail space. So as you can see in the before and after images of the project, Empire Stores has really transformed into a shining beacon on the waterfront. So again, this courtyard was the big design move that really helped seal Midtown Equity's RFP win. It's an open air space that connects the retail on the ground floor to the rooftop. And as you can see in this image, the courtyard really celebrates the historical elements of the building, including the stone walls and the arched brick facade. And this mix of modern and historical design elements has made it really attractive for lease up. The stairs around the building bring people from the ground again to the rooftop. And as you can see here, the stair really gets you close to that facade so that people moving throughout the courtyard can enjoy views of the waterfront. So in addition to being partly public space, the rooftop is also prime office space. Next. The development team brought in Soho House as the prime rooftop tenant. Soho House is a members only club, and it was a very strong attraction for future office tenants. So in the original building, this is a photo of the building before the renovations. You can see that the timber columns were spaced very closely together. And so the engineers removed 75% of this column grid to create large open floor plates that would be attractive to their office and retail tenants. And the timber framing and the brick elements of this building helped achieve LEED Silver status for the project. Original details like that timber framing were left exposed throughout the building, and it was really crucial for signing future tenants like West Elm here, and also the food hall operator Timeout Market on the first and second floors. So in addition to creating retail and office spaces, the developers created a 3,000 square foot cultural space on the second floor featured here. This answered the RFP request. And this exhibit is run by the Brooklyn Historical Society, and it tells the story of the industrial waterfront. This space does not pay rent. So there was no glass in the original building because it was a warehouse used for storing coffee. And as you can see in this image, the architects designed rectangular glass windows that sit on top of the brick facade. And this decision to do that, instead of trying to put glass inside the arched openings, saved the team $300,000. So today, these windows provide views of the waterfront, the park, and the skyline. This is a before and after image of the original iron shutters on the building. Historical details like this have been preserved throughout the building, and it really gives the branding of the building a brand identity that helps it stand out in the Dumbo office market. So as we said earlier, the building was heavily damaged by Hurricane Sandy in 2012. And so in the wake of that hurricane, the developers addressed flooding concerns by installing 24/7 backup generators on the roof. They also designed an aqua fence retractable flood wall that's only deployed during preparation for the storm. And that's what's featured in this image here. The aqua fence was the most cost-effective flood mitigation measure that satisfied lender insurance concerns. And the rooftop generators really convinced future tenants that they would avoid disruptions in case of future disasters. So next, Erin is going to talk about the project financials.
So the total project ended up costing about $140 million and was financed through a 70% construction loan and an equity partnership between Midtown Equities, who as the general partner contributed about 10% of the equity, and Rockwood, who contributed the 90% share as the capital partner. HK organization has a small share of equity for their construction and their project management services. The 96-year ground lease with the Brooklyn Bridge Park had an initial acquisition of $26 million and annual rents starting in year 4 of $1.5 million, with yearly increases and participation rent clauses. The developers were able to secure a strong mix of tenants, firstly with West Elm, as we discussed, and then other tenants in the tech and media spaces. However, they were in talks with major firms like Tesla, but it may have been the case that asking rents were just too inflated in Dumbo at the time, and they did not move forward with some of their ideal tenants. This chart is showing the lease-up timeline compared to the retail and office EGI. West Elm signed their lease in 2013 at a record-breaking $48 a square foot and began their lease in 2016. They occupy 1/3 of the total space, and we can see in the middle of 2016 that their office rent began then. So 1/3 of the space translates to about 150,000 square feet that West Elm alone occupies. The building officially opened in May of 2017. There were some rent concessions that dropped the revenue temporarily after that opening, but 10 months after opening, they were 100% leased up. The food hall was the last lease to secure. This caused some small retailers to fail early on without the major foot traffic that a food hall was going to bring into the Empire stores. This chart is looking at the development value increase from the construction loan up until the completion of construction and a small refinancing. With the building largely leased up, the developers secured a major refinance, representing a 250% appreciation in total value in 2017. This gave the project a cap rate of around 5.2% and created more than $100 million in estimated cash out refi proceeds that was distributed through a waterfall structure. 2 years later, this waterfall enabled Midtown to earn enough to buy out Rockwood's LP stake of about $40 million in equity. This exit reflects the typical investment duration for a fund manager like Rockwood, who experienced 15% higher returns than they initially expected with the project. And so they were satisfied with letting go of the project and allowing Midtown greater control of this development. Empire Stores represents 9% of Dumbo's total office market, and the West Elm lease by itself is 3%. So when this record-breaking West Elm lease was signed, The Real Deal reported that it spiked in neighborhood asking rents between 2014 and 2015. And we see the continuation of a spike in Dumbo asking rents all the way up until 2018. However, as developers began using the rental rates as a baseline for new developments, a supply glut hit the market. And while Dumbo and Midtown South's asking rents nearly overlapped earlier in the decade, by 2020, they had diverged. And these new developments did not achieve the record-breaking numbers that West Elm was able to set in the market. There was a combination of factors that we believe Empire Stores made it so successful. Its iconic warehouse architecture, its waterfront location, And most importantly, its integration with the Brooklyn Bridge Park, which welcomes 5 million annual visitors. With its singular presence, Empire Stores was able to assuage major reservations about Dumbo's location and its pedestrian inaccessibility. We can see these two major bridges bisecting the neighborhood and essentially cutting it off from other surroundings. Compared to the planning of neighborhoods like Hudson Yards formed around major transportation arteries, Dumbo's lack of convenient transportation made its office supply arguably less attractive than other markets. So these two bridges cut through the neighborhood. And as we can see, going from the train, which is the major transportation means to accessing Dumbo, requires walking past these major transportation arteries. We can see some views here of roads bisecting the neighborhood. Although it may not have ushered in a huge shift in the Dumbo tech office market, Empire Stores did influence a generation of waterfront adaptive reuse proposals. Here we see Manhattan's St. John's Terminal, where a modern glass rooftop addition atop a industrial building attracted tenants like Google. Midtown Equities themselves has gone on to replicate this formula. Here we're showing the Battery Maritime Hotel building that they're working on currently, and we see this glass rooftop addition on the historic structure. While we believe that Empire Stores is uniquely positioned within the market because of its relationship to the park, it has suffered rent deferrals in COVID-19, and we decided to take a look at some scenarios for this year and the following years. We see that even in 2020, if there's 75% of retail and 10% of office deferring their rent, the NOI declines, but it still meets its debt service. In 2021, we looked at two scenarios of retail vacancy, as we know that the retail in this store is going to be impacted heavily from the pandemic. J. Crew, one of the tenants we know, is in bankruptcy. So there's surely some retail distress that's headed to Empire Stores. Here we're looking at a 20% retail vacancy versus a 75% retail vacancy. And although they impact the cash flows, even with the 75% vacancy, it can meet debt service. And with a 20% vacancy, as well as an expected rebound of office cash flows, there's hardly an impact at all. This is because retail only takes up about 20% of the revenues of the Empire Stores. And so even with a significant impact to the retail, we believe that Empire Stores is well positioned to weather this pandemic. As lease renewals take place in the later part of the decade, we can see that cash flows rebound towards the end of 2029 and 2030. If the sponsors and the developer decides to exit, given the fact that office and retail may not be as attractive as they once were, we believe that an exit at around this time of 2030 would be ideal and allow the sponsor to sell at a cap rate similar to the one that they refinanced at in 2017 and 19. However, the sponsors have said that this is a generational hold, so it's to be determined whether they do decide to exit this opportunity. Even with the distress of the pandemic, we believe that Empire Store's location and its relationship with the park enables it to take advantage of some special circumstances that can help its retail and office performance, including the opportunity to expand the retail into the park with restaurants and whatnot. We can see that the rooftop space is also an important factor that can help Empire Stores weather this storm. Its connection to the park and its amazing uniqueness will help it become a strong performer in the years to come. And we believe that success is still there for Empire Stores. And we just want to thank everybody for taking time to listen to our proposal today. And we look forward to discussing it with everyone.
Good, thank you, Team 13. Very good presentation. And now we will open the floor up for the judges to ask questions.
I guess I'll start then. My name is David Rydberg. I was just interested in community, and work with the community and entitlements. Was there a lot of dialogue with the community to come up with the plan for the project? And were there any special entitlement challenges that they had to overcome for this kind of project?
Sure. I think we can all answer that, but the community was heavily involved from the beginning. When the Brooklyn Bridge Park was putting together this RFP, they talked with the community who appreciated the idea of a historical space that would tell the story of the industrial waterfront, but they also pushed for opening the space up because it's this wall to the water. And so they were kind of an instrumental force in creating that requirement in the RFP of a cut in the building. And that's kind of what Midtown capitalized on and really made the core of their design. I think they realized that it was so important to the community. And then with the entitlements, this project was actually exempt from the zoning in the neighborhood. It was part of the historic district, and the construction was overseen by the State Historic Preservation Society. It was, although it was also exempted from the Landmark Preservation Committee, it did consult with the Landmarks Preservation Committee throughout the design to make sure that it was, following kind of their recommendations and best practices. And the rooftop was redesigned based on some feedback that they got from the Landmarks Committee. It was also conforming with the park's special scenic view district, and it was involved in an interesting lawsuit where a neighborhood association claimed that they removed this building from the National Park Service kind of land, and so the park had to swap some sites of city-owned land to make up for that removal. I think anyone wants to add.
Okay, I would like to ask a couple questions. We actually missed the very beginning of your presentation when we came from one of the breakout rooms to the main room. So sorry we didn't see the very introduction of your presentation, but you all did a great job. My question is, in terms of the overall financial planning for the project, I didn't notice, or maybe I missed it. Did the developers employ the use of any historic tax credits in their overall financing of this historic building? And secondly, what were the other types of public incentives that were used? I noticed you mentioned the ground lease. I didn't hear how long that ground lease was for, whether it was for 75 or 99 years. But I was curious what other types of incentives they provided to the development team to undertake the project. And I have a follow-up question after that.
Sure, maybe I can answer the first half of that question. So the building is on a 96-year ground lease that started in 2013. And then, sorry, can you remind me what the first half of your question was?
Oh, I can jump in actually. It was, they did consider applying for historic tax credits, but they were concerned that it was such a modern reinterpretation of the building that it wouldn't be approved for those tax credits. And so they decided not to apply for them. But there is an NEH grant that funded the Historic Society kind of exhibit, the public exhibit in the space.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
so
in terms of
go ahead.
in terms of other development incentives, in addition to, I guess in terms of COVID-19 right now, the development team has actually received a rent deferral because of COVID-19. So this year's rent will be deferred over the next 6 to 7 years.
So they received a rent deferral from the ground lease
Right.
by the city.
Yeah, it's 50% of the next 3 years to be deferred over the next 7 years.
Okay, and so it sounds like there weren't any other substantial community benefit, I mean, any other financial incentives like tax abatement or any of that that the developer used in the financing of the project.
So there was a strategy to use the pilots program and the PILO MORT program. So these programs basically allow the developers to, instead of paying refinancing state taxes, they pay kind of upfront fees for the project through the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay. And then my last question was, during the last year of COVID, what has been the impact on the office occupancy? And has the developer had to provide any kind of rent concessions to the office tenants?
So we know that there have been office deferrals. However, we know that they are not as severe as the retail tenants deferrals, especially because we do know that West Elm is actually, and that's their anchor tenant, and a third of the total space in the building has been performing better than ever right now. I think because everyone is at home and wants to update their furniture or something. We've realized that anchor tenant is actually well positioned for this time.
Yeah, everybody's buying in-home office furniture and casual furniture. So, okay, thank you.
I was actually going to ask about that as well, and I'm surprised you didn't model that out as well. So I was a little surprised that you didn't create a set of assumptions rather than just focusing on retail, which is only, you say, is only 20% of the overall revenue stream. I was also going to ask, though, did I might have just missed it. What was the achieved and expected rate of return for the project? Because you talked a lot about, oh, we can make the debt service, but you're not talking about the equity holders. So, and you said at one point somebody made 15% more than expected, but I didn't hear the expected. And I just might have missed it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was the NOI, and I think we aren't privy to what the return kind of structure in the waterfall was for this project. So we aren't 100% sure of what returns they were after. We do know that for say 2019, the NOI numbers were about 15% higher than what they had modeled in a loan kind of ask at the beginning for the project. So of about 17 million, they were doing a few million more in NOI.
So you didn't model out what you thought the assumptions would have been. Obviously, yes, you're probably not privileged to have information, but you didn't model out based on, say, other projects or making assumptions or anything along those lines?
We did actually model out some office vacancy scenarios looking at that, and we realized that a 15% office dip would be about equivalent, almost exactly equivalent to a 75% retail vacancy.
Okay.
And so just to kind of show the impact of that, but we ultimately, in the concern of time, we decided to leave that out, as we had kind of covered the fact that office was such a large part of the revenue.
While you have that sources and uses chart up there, I have a couple quick questions. You're showing the total sources and uses at $137 million each. In the case of the land, you have $26 million, and yet it's a ground lease, which which normally would mean that you wouldn't actually have an out-of-pocket cost on the land. And so if you don't have that out-of-pocket cost on the land, and the land is then paid through the lease from cash flow, how does that adjust your sources and uses there? Because if everything down below adds up to 137, and you don't actually have to pay out that 26 million, and then up above you have 137 million of costs, of uses, explain to me how that actually balances. And then I'd be curious if you could say a little bit more about what the lease expenses were that are capitalized in that uses.
Sure. So just to clarify that, the equity partnership and the 96-year ground lease with the Brooklyn Bridge Park Corporation actually did involve an initial lease acquisition payment of $26 million. So that's what we're showing here in the uses table. And in addition to that 26 million, it's followed by annual ground lease rent starting in year 4 at $1.5 million with those annual 2.25% increases. And then in addition to that, there's actually a participation rent clause of about 8%. And starting in 2019, that began to give huge benefits to the park because that 8% share of NOI was higher than the ground rent. But in 2020, given the pandemic, that has been wiped out.
That's an expensive piece of land if you have to pay 26 million up front on a 99-year ground lease and pay an annual payment and provide a percentage. That's an interesting situation.
In fact, what we understood is that the actual ground lease payments were low in comparison to typical ground lease payments that are normally around 15% of your NOI, but in this case were closer to 8%. And from our kind of interviews with the Brooklyn Bridge Park, they were more looking for someone to just, they did not have, outsized expectations for this site. And they were really looking for someone to just stabilize the building and bring it back to life because of this hurricane that had just happened. They were in a kind of dire, state and needed someone to come in. So in our understanding, it wasn't as large as other ground lease.
A question, if I may. I know that clearly West Elm, coming to the table with Midtown was it's a great lead horse in terms of financing and putting this whole thing together. Did Brooklyn Bridge or anybody have any other restrictions going forward or a say-so in terms of any type of other tenancy that Midtown could pursue?
I can take this question. No, they didn't have any other kind of oversight on future tenants. They just mandated that there would be a cultural space in the building that would be operated. And today that's the Brooklyn Historical Society. Right. So other than that, there were no kind of specifications for what tenants can come into the building. But I think there was a lot of hope, at least from our conversation with David at the BBPC, that more TAMI tech advertising media tenants would be coming into this building to really contribute to the growth of the Brooklyn Tech Triangle.
And I will just add that the park did negotiate with the developers the ability to exercise recognition agreements with the largest tenants, although I don't think they had to do so.
Thank you.
Were there any surprises for the developer? When I've done historic renovations, I mean, that's the thing versus building from scratch is what happens that you don't expect, what issues come up that you weren't aware of. And was just wondering what surprises came up for them during this project.
Sure. I think especially the engineers that were involved in the team had been heavily involved with historic preservation in the city for a number of years. And they were actually part of the community group that really advocated for the 2012 RFP to kind of save the building from demolition. And so I think the development team was still pretty surprised though by the extensive amount of structural damage in the building, especially after Hurricane Sandy. And so the engineering team actually came up with a very innovative solution of using a combination of a mat slab foundation and mini helical piles to stabilize and support the structure. So as you can see today, the building shell is basically almost completely intact because they were so surgical and precise in maintaining that facade. Yeah, and then as we said earlier, all of the timber that's used in the building today is original to the building. So no outside timber was brought in, which overall really helps the sustainability strategy of the building by lowering its carbon footprint.
And I guess I'll also add that the close relationship between the developers, the park, and the historical oversight kind of ensured that there was this open communication where they anticipated any moves that would be needing to change or be made. And so there weren't major kind of pivots that had to happen in the middle of the design because they had really stayed in close communication with the State Historical Preservation Society and the Landmarks Preservation Committee.
Well, thank you, judges, for your questions. I think because you missed the first couple of slides, I'm going to ask Team 13 to go back to the beginning and just cover those first two or three slides for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the second, this is our cover page. The second page is, so the Empire Store is an adaptive reuse redevelopment of historical industrial warehouses along the Brooklyn waterfront in Dumbo. So we just kind of introduce is a public and private partnership between the developers and the Brooklyn Bridge Park. And the third page is showing all of the partnerships in this development, and the Brooklyn Bridge Park has been issued the RFP for the Empire Store in the 2012. And the Midtown Equity bring up all of the teams, including the HK organization, Rockwood organization, the Studio V, and Suman to win this competition. And the next slide is the executive summary. I don't know if you come in at this point. It was showing the Empire Store was transforming from the 330,000 square foot of warehouses into a 500,000 square foot of the retail office. And the one that we mentioned is the culture space, and showing that I have achieved the record for the office rent for the neighborhood in 2014. And it was actually considered one of the most successful adaptive reuse development in the New York City back then. Next page, I think, is a historical background. I don't know if we, okay, that's great, yeah.
That's where you.
Oh, they're coming,
yeah, thank you, Lynn. When we joined in, you were talking about this slide, so
okay,
thank you for just putting it in the context of the beginning of the program.
Yeah, never.
All right.
No problem.
Well, great presentation, Team 13. We appreciate your patience. And now I am going to ask, David, do you have a question?
Oh, no, that was just an ending clap. No questions. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Judges, I'm going to ask you to now score Team 13. And then maybe while you're doing that, Carrie, we can.
I'll go get Team 17. And just so the judges know, Team 17 is a team of one. So it's not that there are other team members participating. She is a team of one.
She's brave.
Yeah, I'll go get her now.
Also, judges, if you're prompted to go to the breakout room, don't. Just stay here. Thanks.
And Team 13, you can remain here as well.
And judges, if you could just let us know when you have submitted your scores.
I'm set. I got to
Yeah.
confirm back too, so seems to work.
I can let everyone know once I have everyone's scores, so I can give
All
it.
right, thanks, Tanya.
Charmaine, you should be able to share screen now.
Okay.
And if we could ask everybody else to please mute if you're not already muted. Thank you. And so this is team 17.
Carrie, we
Yes.
haven't received score from all the judges yet.
Oh, okay. So just hold on, Charmaine.
They're still grading the first team.
Okay, thank you, Tanya.
Okay, I think I have from everyone. We can move forward with the next presentation.
Okay, so our next presenter is team 17 with their project, Lincoln Square.
So, hi, my name is Charmaine, and thank you for being here. I will be presenting my case study on Lincoln Square. Lincoln Square is a contemporary mixed-use development that opened in 2018, located in the Point Breeze neighborhood of South Philadelphia. The development consists of 548,000 square feet of residential space, 140,000 square feet of commercial space, and a pedestrian walkway. The vision of this development was to bring a positive impact to the blighted neighborhood by creating a retail corridor and transit-oriented development that connects South Philadelphia to Center City. The proposal for this development began after a failed agreement with a local high school to relocate to this property. MIS Capital decided to take the contract with the city of Philadelphia for the property in order to redevelop the historic Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad freight shed. Over time, MIS Capital partnered with Altera Property Group and Kimco Realty to broaden the scope of the project from the train shed redevelopment to a mixed-use development of the whole block. Lincoln Square is a project that has not gone unnoticed. This development won the 2019 Preservation Alliance of Greater Philadelphia Economic Impact Award and the Pennsylvania Preservation's Economic Impact Award for the rehabilitation of the train shed. South Philadelphia began as a satellite town with small townships surrounding it. Towards the end of the Industrial Revolution, there was a rapid population growth and urban development. This inflow was due to the migration of working class laborers and the immigration of immigrants searching for factory jobs and dock work. In 1854, South Philadelphia expanded to Center City's southern border and was incorporated in the city of Philadelphia with the passage of the Pennsylvania Legislature of City Council's Act of Consolidation. Lincoln Square is specifically located on the edge of Philadelphia neighborhood of Point Breeze. Point Breeze is an area of land purchased by Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon Bonaparte's older brother, in 1816. By the middle to late 1800s, the development of the city of Philadelphia continued westward towards the Delaware River and southward of Market Street. By the 1860s, Point Breeze was established as an area for oil refinery. By the end of the 20th century, Point Breeze became a multicultural working class neighborhood. Point Breeze Avenue, the Breeze, was a place to live, work, and play. This neighborhood was a self-sustaining, somewhat integrated neighborhood that did not have to rely on Center City for resources and entertainment. By the 1960s, Point Breeze took a turn for the worse. The race riots due to inequality and police brutality led to the immense white flight, not only in Point Breeze, but in multiple South Philadelphia neighborhoods. By the 1970s, Point Breeze was hit with the heroin epidemic, and 2 days later, the crack epidemic. Between the 1990s to 2000s, Point Breeze lost about 10% of their population. In the 2000s, revitalization efforts have taken place in order to bring back the once vibrant neighborhood. Gentrification efforts along the Broad Street and Washington Avenue corridors have led to mixed reactions. Parts of the community are excited for change and for the younger generations to move in, while others are upset their neighbors and families are being displaced by rising property values and the millennials that can afford to replace them. MIS Capital's original vision of this site may not be the vision anyone would have thought it would be. Originally, a Philadelphian school wanted to move their current school location to the site. However, the school was split on how to go about accomplishing this objective. The school board wanted MIS Capital to get the property under agreement, but the school officials were not ready for these actions. Due to the school's indecisiveness, MIS Capital kept the process going for trying to get either the school's name or their name on the contract. In the end, the school delayed for too long, and MIS Capital received the contract after falling in love with the historic train shed on the site. The 38,000 square foot train shed was placed under contract in 2008 with a vision to restore it and place it on the National Register for Historic Places. The main missions of MIS Capital are to save buildings and to make immense impacts on neighborhoods in need. The rehabilitation of the train shed was the perfect project to achieve both of these goals. The creation of Lincoln Square was influenced by the goal of diminishing blight at the edge of Center City, Philadelphia, and becoming the premier gateway to the Avenue of the Arts. This prior plot of land was seen as a black hole in the neighborhood for decades, before it became a vision for helping to merge Center City and South Philadelphia by providing ample retail and hundreds of residents to the neighborhood. Ultimately, the motivation behind this development was to add to the neighborhood housing demand, increase property values, provide creative placemaking, and more notably, lead to increased development along South Broad Street and Washington Avenue. Lincoln Square began construction in October of 2015 and ended less than 3 years later in July of 2018. Around the time of construction ended, the residential portion of the property began to be leased up and was 100% leased in February of 2020. In addition, the retail portion of the project began leasing in February of 2019 and was leased 6 months later in August. Lincoln Square is about a 688,000 square foot, 130-foot tall transit-oriented development on 3.4 acres of land within the boundaries of Broad Street and 15th Street, Carpenter Street, and Washington Avenue. The apartments include 322 units, and their unit sizes range from 380 square feet micro units to 1,427 square foot 3-bedroom units. The inner portion of the complex includes a 4-level parking garage with 144 bike spaces and 435 car spaces. In addition, there is a pedestrian walkway, the Lincoln Walk, that allows for community gatherings and community-oriented events. The southern and eastern portions of the site consist of 1 level of retail spaces with 7 floors of apartments. The retail space contains tenants of Target, Starbucks, T-Mobile, Chipotle, JP Morgan Chase, Bank, CVS, PetSmart, Insomnia Cookies, and the Wine and Spirit Shop. The northern section is made up of a historic train shed that was redeveloped and expanded into a 38,000 square foot Sprouts Farmers Market with a public plaza in the front. This remarkable train shed was constructed in 1876 and is famous for being a part of the major hub for the Philadelphia, Wilmington, Baltimore Railroad line, as well as a funeral stop for President Abraham Lincoln. In 1861, President-elect Lincoln secretly visited the train station during a forecasted assassination attempt on his life. He was personally escorted to the Washington, D.C. using this train, and when he arrived, his Secret Service used a message of poems delivered not safely to telegraph Mrs. Lincoln that her husband arrived safely. After President Lincoln's passing, he was being transported to Illinois, his home state, for his funeral. Along the way, his coffin was unloaded and carried in a procession to Independence Hall for a memorial ceremony. This development was named in his honor and presence on the site when he had secretly boarded a train on the night of February 22nd, 1861, days before his first inauguration on March 4th, and publicly in 1865 after his assassination. Currently, this train shed is listed on Philadelphia's Historic Register and the National Register for Historic Places. The project is named after President Lincoln's actions of trying to bridge the country back together. Lincoln Square is a symbolic metaphor for wanting to bridge South Philadelphia and Center City together. After MIS Capital placed the project under contract, the problem at hand was still what could be done with this property. MIS Capital purchased the property in order to rehabilitate the train station in order to bring a positive impact to the community. As time went on, the vision became more and more unrealistic as the financial cost of the project kept increasing and the parking requirements by the city led to diminishing benefits that were sought after. From 2008 to 2015, there were various strategies to find a more viable solution. The options involved including a new building focused on the arts, a new sustainable headquarters for a local cultural society. And on the other hand, the city of Philadelphia wanted the site to be a retail destination for the community. Even though a retail presence was strongly desired, South Broad Street has a reputation for failing retail complexes. In order to make the most of the site and to bring the most impact to the community, MIS Capital decided to partner with Altera Property Group and Kimco Realty to create a retail destination, create apartments, and rehabilitate the train shed by using their close proximity to local transportation to their advantage. After deciding to develop the whole block, the developers had to have it rezoned from industrial to commercial mixed use. This had to be done as industrial zoning does not permit dining, housing, or retail amenities. Furthermore, the developers had to obtain a zoning permit in order to make the 3 existing plots of land, 1000 South Broad Street, 1020 South Broad Street, and 1001 South 15th Street, one contiguous plot of land. During the pre-construction phase, hazardous and contaminated soils within the train shed footprint were remediated due to the land being used as a train station from 1876 to 1976. The remediation of the hazardous materials was required before the sale of the property was finalized by the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation in order for the developers to acquire the land from the city. After talking with the developers and due to their confidentiality of the financials, I'm only able to share the financials that are stated hereafter. So Lincoln Square has a total development cost of about $152 million, of which 12.8 are property costs, 16.8 million are soft costs, 110.9 million are hard costs, and 4.6 million is capitalized interest. The project was mostly financed through equity provided by Kimco Realty. The train shed rehabilitation received 2 grants totaling $2.5 million by the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. First, the Industrial Sites Reuse Program provides grants and low-interest loan financing to perform environmental site assessments and remediation work at formal industrial sites. The second grant, the Multimodal Transportation Fund, encourages economic development and ensures a safe and dependable transportation system is available for Pennsylvania residents. The residential portion of the project costs $84.6 million and has hard costs of $77.1 million as well as soft costs of $7.5 million. The retail portion of the property has a total cost of $34.2 million with hard costs of $24.9 million and soft costs of $9.3 million. Provided for you is the unit mix breakdown. As you can see, there are a total of 322 units, of which make up studios through 3-bedroom units. There is an average unit size of 723 square foot with a total rentable square footage of 232,887. The average monthly rent for these units is $2,034 or $2.80. For the retail portion of the project, there is a total of 140 square foot of space, and they have an average retail rent per square footage of $33.40 with a total retail revenue of $3.5 million. At the time of sale, Lincoln Square will have an NOI of $11.7 million, of which the residential NOI will be $7.3 million and the retail NOI is $4.2 million. The developers will hold the property for 180 months, and by September 2031, the developers will exit the residential property with a cap rate of 5.2% and a retail property with an exit cap rate of 6%. This leads to gross sales proceeds of $211.2 million, of which $140.8 million is residential and $70.4 million is retail. The graphic provided displays the return on cost for the whole property. Lincoln Square will be financially stabilized with an NOI of $10.1 million with a 6.7% yield on cost. Due to the current circumstances with coronavirus, there is a project decrease in NOI and yield on cost in 2021 before it slowly increases thereafter from 2022. The graphic shows the detailed return on cost for the residential and retail portions of the site. The residential section will have a stabilized NOI of $6.6 million, and the resale side will have one of $3.6 million. Both have stabilized yield on cost of 6.7%. And again, due to the coronavirus circumstances, the retail portion does show a projected decline in NOI and yield on cost in 2021 before slowly stabilizing and increasing thereafter. So there are a few challenges, benefits, and innovations with this site. Although Philadelphia as a whole was hit hard by the pandemic, the same cannot be said for Lincoln Square. During the pandemic, Lincoln Square has maintained a 5 to 8% vacancy rate for its residential side and a 0% physical vacancy rate for its retail side. The only downside Lincoln Square has faced is that their Starbucks and Sprint stores have closed their locations until non-essential retailers were allowed to open their doors during midsummer 2020. The benefits in the site include the residential space and the public spaces. The residential units provide access to ample sunlight for its residents by delivering floor-to-ceiling windows in every unit, as well as some units having private terraces. Some of these amenities can be found on the garage rooftop deck, including an outdoor track, rooftop terrace with 2 grills, fire pits, fireplace hearth, outdoor movie walls, and 2 85-inch TV screens. Within the complex, there is a fitness center where residents can also use to de-stress and meet their neighbors. The Lincoln Walk, the pedestrian walkway that stretches from Broad Street to 15th Street, provides members of the community an extra route to get from South Philadelphia to Center City using greener methods of transportation, such as biking and walking. The public plaza located in front of the Sprouts Farmers Market is a place created for community engagement and gatherings, as well as there are new bike lanes that were also inserted on the stretch of land behind the development along 15th Street. The centerpiece of Lincoln Square, the train shed, was rehabilitated and redeveloped into a grocery store. The train shell was left intact, but the structure did receive some major upgrades. The building received a new roof, windows, and restored doors. There were new brick and glass additions that served as an entrance to the grocery store. The original train station timber was removed in order to bring the building to grade level, and the timber was sold to a salvager in New Jersey who used the timber to create smaller boards for repurposing. In addition, the original green sliding doors, about 25 of them, were all reused as furnishings around the interior of the grocery store. Lincoln Square was constructed under the original mission of saving a historic train shed by giving it a second chance at life. But in the end, the project turned into something more. The project was undertaken to provide the greatest social impact to the community on which the development serves. The transformation of a former industrial train station to a productive and blossoming community that generates taxes and jobs to boost Philadelphia economy is a major component in the city's thriving community. This development has generated 2,000 construction jobs and 400 permanent jobs from the inception of the project to its finish. In addition, the property generates tax revenue for the city of Philadelphia, including property sales, wages, and liquor taxes. Lincoln Square's impact on the neighborhood should not be understated. The development acts as a retail corridor to the surrounding neighborhoods and provides housing to hundreds of new residents. The project reshaped a noticeable blight at the edge of Center City and changed and created a gateway to the Avenue of the Arts. Lincoln Square provides this low-income yet gentrifying neighborhood with an affordable grocery store that supplies healthy products, which is an amenity that this neighborhood has never experienced. Not only can Lincoln Square greatly add to the neighborhood's property value, but it can create further opportunities for development along South Broad Street and Washington Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Team 17. That was a great presentation. And I'm going to open it up to the judges now for questions.
Can I throw one out, I guess? Or,
Go ahead.
all
Go right ahead.
All right, couple quick sort of two. One was what was the, I'm curious about the partnership percentages, just out of curiosity, developer, Kimco, et cetera, what their splits were. That's the first part. And the second part, I know you talked about an exit strategy. Is there, we all create exit strategies, but is there a defined exit that has to come with this project, or is just a strategy potentially down the road?
So their split is Kimco is 90% owner of the property, with MIS Capital and Altera 10% ownership. And the exit strategy is just a strategy. It's not made in stone. They plan to hold the property for as long as possible, but only strategize to hold the property for 15 years.
Excellent. Thank you. Your presentation was fabulous.
So Charmaine, I don't know that we can call you Team 17. We can just call you Team Charmaine. Congratulations to you for your work on this. I happen to be from Philadelphia, so looking at these images, it's deja vu for me. I can almost see in West Philadelphia where I grew up. My question really it goes back to it seems like there was a long, extensive community participation process to get this project going. And were there any specific financial incentives that the city offered to help make this transaction go forward?
Yes. So I was told by the developers that the city of Philadelphia really wanted this property to be redeveloped. So in order to help them with the development, they gave them the property for free as long as they remediated the train shed and took all of the environmental hazards off of the property before they sold it to them.
Okay. All right.
So Charmaine, a question. You brought up, the challenges of gentrification. I mean, there are certainly positives with the affordable grocery store and other, aspects of this project, but it also has an impact on increasing rents in the neighborhood and other potential issues. How has the project been, accepted over time by some of the long-term residents, and has it caused some displacement because of people being able to afford to stay there as, taxes may have gone up or taxes and or rents?
I don't have the information on how the development has affected the community. I was able to research and find that they do accept the grocery store as well as the retail amenity space, because on average, they'd have to travel about 15 to 20 minutes to get to a big named a grocery store or any type of retail space. For the rents and displacement, I haven't been able to find those informations out because of the coronavirus and the government allowing tenants to stay in their homes while not being evicted by their landlords. I haven't been able to find any information about displacement.
Great, thank you. One follow-up. I saw your note at the beginning, MIS is a social impact investor. What were they looking for from this project, as far as from a social impact side? Very different, obviously, from the REIT, who's looking much more financially driven.
MIS Capital wanted to make the neighborhood a better place. They're always trying to, they don't really care about the financials, more about uplifting communities that need help. So when they saw the train shed, they automatically wanted to put it on the National Register for Historical Places, but they wanted to find a use for it that would benefit the most amount of people as possible. So they definitely wanted, they were looking at making it a cultural center, a headquarters for a business that was located in Philadelphia already. But once the retail ideas started popping into their head, they realized that a grocery store was definitely the best option.
Thank you.
Charmaine, what all is going on with that in that roofing image there? Are all those, is that all landscaping, or is that actually some gardening? And tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, so this is their garage rooftop. It has an outdoor track, which is the shiny part in the front. It's a green roof, so that's the grass. And then they have an outdoor like hearths and fireplaces all about. They have an outdoor kitchen, and I don't think it shows the movie wall, but I believe it's where the circle tables are where the movie wall is. So it has a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
I actually would ask a question, except you actually covered everything that I had written down to ask in your presentation. So the only thing that I'm kind of curious, and obviously you're not going to know this, but have you thought about how, even though vacancy hasn't increased, potential rent deferrals would affect the financials of this project? Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, yeah. It's just something I was wondering if you thought about.
I did think about it when I was looking at their financials. I was wondering how all of tenants, like when their leases are up in like a year or so, or the retail tenants being able to afford the rent due to low or maybe diminished business. I wish I had that answer, but that makes me curious as well.
Thank you. Sorry, and very well done.
Charmaine, was there any affordable housing component to this, or was it all market rate?
It was all market rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions.
Are there any other questions from the judges? Okay, thank you so much, Charmaine. And judges, if you could complete your scoring form and submit it. And then Carrie, if you could get team 16.
Yes, thank you. Nick, you should be co-host now.
Yeah, and we just need a minute. Stu.
Yes, yeah, they know they're going to wait until they're prompted to start.
Okay.
Thank you, Tanya.
All right, we should be ready to go ahead with team 16.
Okay, just I'm going to remind everybody that to mute your screen. Nick, were you able to pull up your presentation?
Yes, here, I'll do that now.
Yes, please.
All right, can you see that?
Yep. So our third presentation is Team 16 with their Project West Half.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
right.
I can.
Yeah, yes, you're good.
All right, let's get started then. What are one of the few activities in the world that can excite millions and unify a group of people behind a common goal? The answer is sports. Sports are one of the few events in the world that can do this, and the unification happens thanks to people getting behind a team. Successful teams possess characteristics such as a strong sense of direction, great leadership, and incredible attributes. These same characteristics that make a successful team can also be seen in successful real estate developments. I'm Carter Ramos, and this is my associate, Nick Wright, and today we will be presenting West Half, a new mixed-use development in the backyard of Nationals Park in Washington, D.C. Through JBG Smith's great leadership, strong sense of direction, and the incredible attributes present on and around the site, West Half has created an exciting place where people can unite for years to come.
JBG Smith's strong direction for West Half created an experience-driven development that would provide endless entertainment opportunities for its residents. Additionally, JBG Smith's vision revitalized this area into one of the top-notch neighborhoods within Washington. And further outlining the game plan, the assembly of a premier development team with best-in-class firms was critical in handling the complicated design assist project. The team was committed to being environmentally conscious by including sustainable features, and they also navigated through various planning and entitlement issues. JBG Smith saw the incredible attributes that West Half could provide through location, amenities, and truly breathtaking design.
When Nationals Park was finished in 2008 at the height of the Great Recession, this diamond in the rough was surrounded by industrial and vacant buildings resembling the state of our economy at the time. The neighborhood around Nationals Park was undesirable, but the ballpark created a beacon of hope for revitalization. As the economy recovered, developers saw the opportunity to rebuild the neighborhood into an experience-driven mecca using Nationals Park as the anchor. JBG Smith was one of those developers that saw the potential for the ballpark neighborhood and acquired the 1201 Half Street Southeast parcel in 2017 to implement their vision of creating West Half. So here's the project overview. JBG Smith wanted to bring a community-oriented mixed-use development to Half Street right behind the Centerfield Gate to Nationals Park, a walkable street lined with West Half's first floor food, alcohol, and entertainment retail tenants would be positioned perfectly to capitalize on game day traffic and create this community effect. On top of the 65,000 square feet of retail sits 465 luxury apartment units ranging from studio to three-bedroom units, most of which are one beds. All residents of West Half can watch Nationals games from the building, either from their balconies, the rooftop, or the private lounges. There is also an underground parking deck with spaces to provide parking options for residents, fans on game days, and retail customers. Jay Kelly, VP of Development at JBG Smith, in an interview told us that they wanted West Half to create an unforgettable experience from the time visitors exited the metro station onto Half Street till game night was over, leaving you craving the next time you can enjoy a ball game, pre-game meal, and post-game drink, all provided by West Half and the ballpark neighborhood.
And before discussing the location of West Half, I think that it's important to quote Jay Kelly, the VP of Development at JBG Smith. He said, "You don't often get a parcel that sits at the center field gate of a major league stadium. My associate and I believe this truly speaks to the excitement and passion that they had for this project." So the location of West Half is 1201 Half Street Southeast in DC's growing ballpark district. This is the neighborhood that immediately surrounds the stadium. Residents can access many nearby amenities, including Nationals Park, Audi Field, and the Yards Park. The Yards Park is a popular open space destination amongst residents in the Capitol Riverfront submarket. The transportation options surrounding West Half are truly advantageous for its residents. The Navy Yard Metro Station sits only about 100 yards away from the site and has a convenient entrance along Half Street. Additionally, if residents find it necessary to use personal vehicles, the site sits only a few blocks away from I-695 and I-295, which will allow transportation onto the Capitol Beltway and throughout the Washington metro area. Further proceeding to innovation, as evident from the previous images in our slides, the design architect modeled West Half to have an iconic silhouette. This was due to the fact that millions of people would be viewing West Half over the course of a year because of the televised games as well as the foot traffic in and around the stadium. The design also had inspiration from the surrounding area. As you can see from the image on the left side of your screen, the natural incline of the building is similar to that of stadium seating within the ballpark. In combination with this feature, the front corner of the building was cut away to provide viewing angles for residents at West Half. And by doing this, it eliminated several units from the building. To recover these lost units, the architect implemented a cantilever design that maximized floor space. The image on my left side of the screen shows this in more detail, as you can see that the interior of the building extends outward to recover these lost units. And there's further innovation in the design, the delivery method of West Half. JBG Smith implemented a design assist approach that allowed the architect, engineer, and contractor the ability to collaborate throughout the design process. This eliminated any concerns relating to the capabilities of each party, as they were able to discuss and make changes when needed. Many of these discussions came from the design of West Half, as it created challenges related to the building's plumbing and structure.
So what are the most important factors to look at when conducting a market analysis? For West Half, these factors were households, traffic, and spending. By adding 465 dwelling units, JBG Smith is helping address the 4,339 projected household increase within 1 mile of West Half over the next 5 years. The 2,478 average asking rent is 14% higher than other 4- and 5-star properties in DC, but can be justified by West Half's locational attributes, convenience, and amenities that come with living in the backyard of a Major League Baseball stadium. Assuming a 30% income to housing ratio, many DC residents can afford the luxury of living at West Half because average household income within 2 miles of the site is $125,000. The 34.3 median age of residents within 2 miles of West Half is a relatively young demographic compared to the nationwide median. Younger people tend to spend more on food, alcohol, and entertainment, which aligns with West Half's strategy of leasing their retail space to tenants that provide those options. It is estimated that food and beverage spending will increase 64% between 2020 and 2025 within a 15-minute walk of West Ave. This $100 million increase can largely be attributed to household growth, daytime employment, and increased traffic to Nationals games. Some of the traffic numbers to consider around West Ave include 211,000 daytime employees within 2 miles, average daily traffic counts 1 block over on South Capitol Street of 52,000, and over 2,200,000 people attended Nationals games last year. Given these numbers, West Ave's retail is in a great position to capture a percentage of all kinds of traffic. Within the ballpark neighborhood, we found the Marin, Dock 79, and the Colvin to be comps of West Ave. All of them have similar rents and unit mix. The Colvin is the most similar to West Ave, as it is also in Half Street, and is directly adjacent to the property. As we get into our return on investment analysis, here are a few factors that influence the finances and business plan of JBG Smith, including the project cost of $231 million with a $145 million construction loan at 60% loan to cost and an interest rate of about 4.6%, which was the 2017 LIBOR rate plus 2.85. During the construction of West Ave, JBG Smith switched from building and selling condos to building apartments and holding them for the cash flows. This changed their business model and changed the way that they would model their finances. Getting into the return on investment, JBG Smith used their corporate lines of credit to retire the higher interest rate asset level project debt, allowing for better returns on the project. Due to confidentiality and its recent completion in February 2020, we had to make several financial assumptions to generate a return on investment. These assumptions are based on comparable data found in the DC market and through interviews we conducted with industry professionals. We valued West Ave by breaking down the building using uses by their respective cap rates. We used a 4.5% cap rate for the residential side and a 5.9% cap rate for the retail side, which are current DC metro area cap rates, to generate a 5-year sales price after completion of $325 million and a 10-year sales price after completion at $362 million. To generate our NOI, we assumed 95% stabilized occupancy after 3 years, which generated NOIs at year 5 of roughly $14.7 million and a NOI of $16.5 million at year 10. JBG Smith knocked it out of the park with their returns, generating a 17.9% levered IRR at a 10-year sales price. The higher 5-year IRRs can be justified by cash flows generated in between completion of project and of sale of the property. By cutting the holding period of an asset in half with relatively similar NOIs each year and a similar 5 and 10-year sales price, this boosted the IRR significantly. Also, the equity multiple of 4.21 at year 10 means that each dollar invested gave more than $4 in return to JBG Smith for the development of West Ave.
You may be wondering how this area grew so quickly. A large portion of that growth can be attributed to Nationals Park. In the neighborhood immediately surrounding the stadium, almost 3,000 households have been added since 2010, and the property values in the area have grown by over $1 billion. And though the park spurred growth, the DC Office of Planning should receive some credit as well. They did not apply PUDs to this neighborhood, and PUDs are planned unit developments, and they increase the approval process as well as the regulations of what can be built in an area. By not applying PUDs, developers came into the ballpark and quickly brought their visions to life immediately. And due to the site's location near Nationals Park, JBG Smith and other third-party advertisers considered the placement of digital signs on the exterior of West Ave. The district was heavily opposed to this, and JBG Smith met with them for 2 years before finally receiving approval as an entertainment district. This allowed digital signage to be used, and it monetized West Ave and served as an additional revenue stream for the building. The second largest planning and entitlement issue that West Ave faced was outside of the building on Half Street. Due to the heavy foot traffic, the developers on the block wanted to implement a Winerf street design. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with a Winerf, it is a popular street design that's commonly found in Europe, and it helps maintain walkability while also decreasing vehicular speeds. The city was hesitant as this would be one of the only privately developed roads within Washington, and the developers would have to care for the road after its construction and completion. Ultimately, the city agreed to put $2.2 million towards the road, while the developers on Half Street financed the remaining $5.8 million. Lastly, due to the unique design of West Half, it left minimal amenity space within the building. JBG Smith could not simply add an extra story to the building because of the Height of Buildings Act of 1910. This act limits buildings to a height of 130 feet within Washington so that Washingtonians can see unobstructed views of the monument and the Capitol buildings throughout DC. To work around this, JBG Smith utilized the 2015 Penthouse Amendment. This amendment allowed the construction of 20 extra feet of habitable space on top of the 130-foot height limit. With this act, they were able to include a rooftop pool and a sky lounge that you can see on my left, and it served as an amenity space for the residents. And moving on to the environmental issues, the prior uses of the site were heavily industrial. This resulted in polluted soils from car shops and gas stations. During underwriting, JBG Smith estimated that 50% of the soil was contaminated. However, after soil borings, they concluded that 100% of the soil was contaminated. This was by far the costliest unknown for JBG Smith, and it cost over $1 million to remediate. And in conjunction with those environmental issues, several sustainable measures were put in place to decrease the project's carbon impact. The green roofs helps filter stormwater and mitigate the urban heat island effect found commonly in many cities. The building's orientation of north to south capitalizes on east to west sunlight and reduces heating costs in colder months. Additionally, this was a brownfield redevelopment, as we mentioned, and the walkability and transit of the site is excellent as the Navy Yard Metro Station is only a few blocks away, and this site generated a walk score of 92. All these measures helped accumulate a LEED Gold certification for West Half.
So you may ask, what kind of issues could a real estate development run into with a February 2020 completion at the height of the COVID pandemic? COVID has presented challenges relating to leasing of both residential and retail at West Half. Only 15,000 square feet of the 65,000 square feet of retail has been leased, which harms the short-term NOI of West Half. West Half is broken down into two different types of units, one being the 1205 collection, which are the more expensive and higher end units, and the other is known as the West Half collection. The 1205 collection has been underperforming during the pandemic because of the extra financial burden that people do not want to take on right now during the economic uncertainty. For the current retail tenants, the negative effect presented by COVID with lack of foot traffic and baseball season cancellation has harmed business. Despite the leasing challenges, once COVID is over, people will be more willing to pay for the amenities and lifestyle that are associated with living in the ballpark neighborhood and West Half. So what's going well so far? The West Half collection has been doing relatively well and is outperforming JBG Smith's COVID projections. COVID won't last forever, and this will help drive leasing when a vaccine is here and restrictions are lifted. Good tenants have already signed leases, some of which are credit tenants like Cold Stone, and they all have the opportunity to get financially stronger tenants once the pandemic is over. During the fan restrictions of baseball season, West Half was one of the few places in the world that fans could watch baseball games while also watching in person from their residence. And West Half has also received awards and recognition with an inclusion in EA Sports MLB The Show video game.
To follow those successes, West Half has generated many benefits. It has helped revitalize a dilapidated area of the city through JBG Smith's placemaking abilities. As you can see from the image on my right, West Half is located near 1221 Van, as well as First Residences, which are two other JBG Smith projects. By locating near specialty tenants such as the Nationals Park, JBG Smith has brought life into this area. And lastly, it is important to note that West Half, as well as the Capitol Riverfront submarket as a whole, have generated tax benefits for the city, and they will use these funds to improve schools, infrastructure, and other community needs.
It has been 13 years since Nationals Park was built, creating a catalyst for tremendous growth and revitalization of a once neglected industrial area. Strong direction and great leadership from JBG Smith while developing West Ave has been influential in creating a building and neighborhood with incredible attributes. With that being said, we would like to thank the Colvin Institute of Real Estate Development once again for giving us the opportunity to learn from completing this case study and for allowing us to share it with you all today. If you all have any questions, we would be happy to answer them right now in our Q&A.
All right, Team 16. Very good presentation. So judges, you want to ask questions now? Go for it.
Well, it certainly hasn't hurt the overall project success that the Nationals have been doing well as a team the year before last. So that's just an observation. I thought you guys did a great job with your overall presentation.
Okay, you good, Michael? Could I jump in?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right, thanks. Looks like a great project. Looks fabulous. I'm not familiar. I know the area very minimally, and I'm a retail guy. So I just wonder, do you know if the developers, in terms of looking at the retail component of the project, and again, COVID aside, because it's the most unusual thing in the whole wide world to have happened, how did they look at the retail component from an overall perspective, right? In a regular season, you're going to get 81 home games. Did they price their rentals based upon that? Is there enough surrounding area support for these retailers? Things like that. And so I don't know what the rental rates were relative to the market. Is there competitive retail in the area? I know it's a strung out question. And then secondarily, there's you talked about the parking, they created parking, but what happens if you live there and you have a car? Do you get killed by game day? And how does that work? Did they separately lease out the parking venue to an operator? So a little broad and a little economic in terms of my questioning, in terms of the values of those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, I can go. I'll address the terms of retail.
Okay, yeah, then I can address the parking.
Yeah. So with the retail, we did incorporate in our pro forma a 14% premium into our retail rents because of the substantial game day traffic that they will generate in a normal situation. We didn't get the exact rental rates for West Half because of their confidentiality, but we did take comps and we found that the rental rates were about like 55% or $55 a square foot. And we bumped them up a certain growth rate to factor in the special uniqueness of the site and being there with the game day traffic.
And then to address your parking question, so we reached out to West Ave and we found that they had 500 spaces within the complex, and for residents, they receive the lower levels of parking, and then there's also one level of parking for game days, but also for the retail, and that's charged at a daily rate of $21. However, it is likely to increase on game days, and then the parking for the residents is at $250 a month.
You incorporate that in all your numbers?
Yes, we did.
Guys, you mentioned that there were two different types of rental units. The sort of base level and then those premium. What were some of the features? I didn't quite get all the features of the upper level group of units, and are they made any adjustments to those in order to try to attract more renting of that segment of the project?
So great question. With the West Half collection and the 1205 collection, the 1205 collection has the more unique, like beautiful finishes. It's a very more high end. It has the better views of the ballpark. It is more expensive. And yeah, it's the 1205 collection is just substantially better in terms of the finishes and the views and stuff like that.
Okay, probably on the upper floors.
Yeah, but the things that they haven't really been trying to to address that problem right now. I think they've been focused on just trying to lease out the west half portion right now, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, and to follow that point, the 1205 collection, its interiors were also done by V-Star Interiors, which was Venus Williams' design firm. So that was a portion of why the rents in those units are higher.
Venus Williams, the tennis player?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, okay. I knew she was into design. It's nice to see her involved with a residential project.
So
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, good. So I'm a DC developer and have lived through, the world of PUDs, planned unit developments. And, obviously it's a nice benefit in a lot of ways to not have to have gone through that. One of the aspects of a PUD is having to do a community benefit agreement. So that I assume was not required here, but I'm interested as to what they did directly, with the community. How did they involve the community in the project at all? And did they do any community benefits, even though, it was not required because they didn't do a PUD?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the main community benefit that we would say for the site is that JBG Smith teamed up with the developers on the remaining Half Street block, and they created the Wood Nerf, and that served as their main community centerpiece. And it has great designs, such as a unique tiling design on the site, and it can be blocked off for retail and restaurants. So that has been a big use currently with COVID and outdoor dining. That was the so that's the main component that they were able to include for the community.
And so because they didn't have to go through a PUD, there are no affordable housing requirements that would typically be in a PUD. Did they include any affordable housing in this project?
Yeah, they did include 10 affordable housing units within the development.
All right. Are there any more questions from the judges? Karen?
No, I had a bunch written down and they all got addressed either by another judge or through the presentation. So well done.
Okay. Thank you very much, Team 16.
Thank you.
Judges,
Good job, guys.
Thank y'all.
Judges,
If
if
you have
you-
questions, we'll have some more answers for y'all.
Judges, if you will go on and score Team 16 while Carrie goes to get our last presenters, Team 10. Thank you.
Kevin, you should have co-hosting abilities now. If you can just go ahead and grab your PowerPoint. And we'll wait until Tanya lets us know they're ready.
All right, we should be ready to go with our last presenter team.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. All right, so our last team up is Team 10 with our project SunTrust Plaza at Church Street Station. Take it away.
Hey, Kev, I think you're on mute, man.
Thank you. All right, now you can hear me. Thanks, Zach. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Boyette. On behalf of my teammates, McDaniel Wyatt and Zach Marquez, our Team 10 will be presenting today on SunTrust Plaza at Church Street Station. We'll be covering, obviously, the project overview, history, market, vision behind the project, innovation, and financial performance. Why did we pick SunTrust Plaza? We were looking for a unique mixed-use building, obviously fairly new, and this project presented itself. And we were introduced to it through part of our advisories at the university. So one of the things we will start with is what makes this project great. It's a series of different items, placemaking. It's a new signature modern design for downtown Orlando. It has walkability about it, has unique features that you actually want to go and use, such as Sky Terrace. It's got some innovative features within it, bridging between the past and the kind of the future of Orlando and how it develops. It capitalized obviously on market demands by having a suburban office floor plate in an urban location. Got the hotel is up top in the building and gives dramatic views of downtown skyline. And also the project was successful from an investment standpoint with good returns. So a little bit more about the product. It's a 25-story mixed-use transit-oriented tower. It's a 180-key hotel. It's about 2,000 square feet of Class A office space, 605 parking spaces, a little over 4,800 square feet of retail. It has a Sunrail commuter rail station located in the ground level of the building, and overall the building's about 6,000 square feet total. It was developed by Lincoln Property Group and Mason Capital Partners, and the AEC team was led by Hunt and Brady Architects. Lincoln Property, Mason Capital, and Hunt and Brady was our main folks that we were able to interview and kind of walked us through this project, and we really appreciate their support and able to document this. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to McDaniel, who will cover a little bit what we're going over next.
Thanks, Kevin. Church Street Station has been a significant part of downtown Orlando since the city was founded. It welcomed visitors as the original stop for the Atlantic Coastline Railroad. And seen here in 1910, rail service had quickly expanded throughout Florida and the East Coast. By the 1920s, the volume of trade and passengers had become too much for the station to handle, and the service was relocated. In the 1970s, entrepreneur Bob Snow redeveloped Church Street Station into a festive and vibrant entertainment destination. The Dixieland Jazz Era themed venue contained 5 distinct showrooms that offered live jazz, blues, country, top 40, and a saloon, as well as retail and restaurants. In 1976, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. After its peak in the late 1980s, it had attracted more than 1.7 million visitors, making it the 4th largest tourist attraction in Florida. It was said to employ 900 workers, most famously a Skyrider, as a nod to the developer's aviation past. However, the music stopped in the 1990s when Snow sold the property. Decades of decline and failed redevelopments followed. Church Street Station, including the original train station surrounding site, went into foreclosure. The Orlando economic market is primarily known as a tourist destination. Thoughts conjure up images of families flocking to make their annual pilgrimage to see Mickey and Minnie. It's become a home to a variety of theme parks, various other warm weather activities. Tourism is a 75 billion with a B industry to Central Florida, and 51% of all sales tax collected in its Orange County are from visitors from all over the world. Investments in convention spaces and hospitality had been concentrated in the tourism corridor, which is southwest of Orlando's downtown. But since the 2000s, downtown Orlando was beginning to see a resurgence. The construction of large-scale event venues and redevelopments brought 300 live events per year to downtown. In 2014, Sunrail brought commuter rail service back to Church Street Station, connecting the area from Central to South Florida. Developers had planned a 14-story Hyatt House hotel on the site to fulfill new downtown demand. However, the project pivoted. Local influential developer Scott Staley had a more robust vision for the site. He felt strongly that the single-use Hyatt had severely undervalued the area. He shared his thoughts with the hotel developer, and he had envisioned a mixed-use tower to reignite Church Street Station as a transit gateway to downtown. Not soon after the conversation, Staley got encouragement from the city and the plans changed. Under Staley's direction, his firm, the Florida office of Lincoln Property Company, gained control of the site. The 25-story mixed-use tower was envisioned on half the acreage of the original hotel. This pivoted the project, giving it a much more intensive use. It also helped test the ceiling for Class A office space in the downtown submarket. Now Kevin will fly us down to the site.
So now we're going to talk about where this is located and a little bit more background detail as far as the site itself. It's located in downtown Orlando, adjacent to I-4 interstate, which is an elevated interstate freeway, an active rail line to the east. As you can see, kind of the flyby, the Amway Center is where the Orlando Magic are located, and it's less than a block away from the City of Orlando City Hall. And adjacent to the iconic Sun Plaza building, as you can see there in the turquoise, that's the icon building for downtown Orlando currently before our project. So now let's talk about a little bit more. This project is about an acre or so. It's one of 3 parcels that were acquired by Lincoln Property Company. The first one is SunTrust Plaza, that's in red. The second one is called T2, which is the Tower 2 parcel designation. And then the third one is the yellow parcel, which is Bumby Arcade. As I mentioned, it's bounded by an elevated interstate freeway to the west, active rail line to the east, which is where the Sunrail state commuter station is planned to be located. There's lots of utilities, underground utilities through this, obviously with that being kind of pitched in between where the city is, which caused a lot of issues during construction. But fortunately, the property was already entitled and the city backed all of the zoning and higher density. They're actually happy with the increased density. And the rail station was already looking for a location to have an indoor facility. Now, going into the building itself, there's some design elements that we learned a lot of information from our interviews with the architecture firm and also with the city. Part of the building, obviously, we were talking about that it's stacked vertically. There's a retail at the bottom level with a lobby for the Sunrail station. Then stacked on top of that is a parking office on top of that, and then the hotel. But also that stacking occurs horizontally. So there's a slab that faces to the west, which is I-4, which is going to deflect a lot of the high-speed traffic and also a lot of the afternoon sun that's coming in on the building. To the east is more of the downtown slab, and that's a little bit more friendly, a little less glass on that. And then pieced together through that, there's a glass gasket, and that's really the access corridor. That's where your elevator towers and those types of things are. there's some innovative things. The glass that they're actually using is an electrochromatic glass, which is able to be adjusted by users as opposed to having physical shades. They're able to adjust it, the density of the glass to allow sunlight in or out. They made use of a chilled water system for the AC that's available in Orlando. They ended up with a stormwater for the site. It was actually contained in tanks that's actually located below, mixed among the structure, substructure of the building. Also, part of the design process is that as they were developing this, working with Scott at Lincoln Property, a concern obviously from the developer standpoint was making sure that they could put multiple users into this mixed building. So they spent some time and effort splitting services for the different users. And another key component to this is that they contain parking within the building as opposed to having to look for an off-site parking with a city. So now I'm going to turn it over for some more innovative features with McDaniel.
Thanks, Kevin. The resulting SunTrust Plaza at Church Street Station has helped usher in a new wave of innovation to the downtown Orlando market. In discussions with professionals and verified by lease-up metrics, we learned that downtown Orlando can expect to see activity for about one newly constructed office high-rise tower per decade. These traditionally have been buildings with smaller floor plates to make room for the larger parking options that Kevin mentioned in the downtown blocks. Until Lincoln Property Company's 111 residential and office tower, they were all also primarily single-use spaces. The larger, more suburban floor plates with ample open space has helped to attract tenants like SunTrust and help set the new bar for per square foot office rents. The project has also led to more of a focus on how incorporating transportation choice can impact successful real estate developments. With its high quality of life, educated workforce, and low cost of living, Orlando has become one of the top markets for attracting young, educated professionals. Creative office clusters, like the Public-Private Partnership for Creative Village, are being developed with an eye toward how users access the site. This includes cost-effective bus rapid transit to conveniently connect many of the downtown entertainment options. The Florida Department of Transportation is completely rebuilding Interstate 4 through downtown Orlando, and both above and below the elevated highway. Plans call for ambitious activated public spaces. That project, called Under the Eye, will reconnect the street grid, opening up safe pedestrian access to downtown Orlando's attractions. Now, while exciting new developments like Church Street Station are helping to shape downtown Orlando's future, development has left other parts of downtown behind. The once vibrant, historically Black neighborhood of Paramore had routinely felt the negative impacts of new development. In the 1960s, original construction of the interstate cut off the neighborhood to the economic center of downtown. A decade later, the east-west highway further fragmented the neighborhood. At its peak, 18,000 residents once lived in Paramore, but that number has declined steadily over the past several decades. Prominent downtown stakeholders, including Lincoln Property Company, are now engaging the community. A 130-acre neighborhood improvement district has been proposed. Its current goal is to help create more community-based revenue opportunities and support current residents and business owners to prevent displacement. Initiatives include improving public health, increasing mobility options, and revitalizing historic buildings. Now, Zach will run us through the project's financials.
Thanks, McDaniel. And as a kind of a connector, all of these items that Kevin and McDaniel have touched on so eloquently had a direct impact on the bottom line shown on the screen. Through our conversations with the developers and other parties, it was very clear that the project had substantial financial returns from the onset. With that being said, it is private. And so our group elected to rebuild a model that had some combination of both hotel, office, and retail. So these numbers are our numbers, our model, but it's based on discussions with the developer and CoStar and market research. So starting with the hotel originally, we assumed a RevPAR of $101, which pre-COVID was pretty typical looking at STAR reports. This would make your ADR about $152 with the starting hotel occupancy at 67%. Now we do know that this is an AC hotel. So we used a distinctive select category, which is the flag under Marriott's brands, to run their operating expenses. So that was how we came up with kind of an NOI for the office, which was phase one. Phase two was the office. So when looking at this model, we wanted to look at, okay, well, what are we at today? So with SunTrust Plaza, it was pre-leased at 84% roughly. So this means that they were covering debt service on the office portion before they even opened the doors, which was very impressive and critical to the investment strategy. Also, as McDaniel briefly mentioned, this was a top of the line office rent package. So there was $40 gross rents with base stop leases, creating an opportunity to really capitalize on long-term investment holds. 2% bumps were pretty typical, increasing NOI over time. And one key factor of getting these tenants was the TI package offered. We modeled around 65 to 75 bucks a foot, which creates a pretty nice space in downtown Orlando. Finally, utilizing CoStar and our conversations with developers, we came up with the assumption of around $10 a square foot for the operating expenses. Other revenue, we included retail and parking. As Kevin mentioned, this was relatively small compared to the other portions, but we did want to make sure we included it. So using these baseline assumptions, then we'd be happy to talk in more detail. You can see that this was a very attractive project from the onset. A 17% return on a leveraged IRR basis, as well as a 279 multiple, was very attractive. Looking at your average levered and unlevered return per year, let's just assume a year 5 or 6 sale, you had severe cap rate compression based on your returns and your cap rate disposition. So moving on to the next slide. There we go.
Sorry.
No worries. So what we have on this slide was basically what made this project special. When talking with the developers, there was a few really proactive decisions. Finance had a huge impact on that bottom line. Just by doing 2 main things and keeping all the other assumptions consistent, we didn't change revenue, we didn't change operating expenses. We changed 2 things: hotel sale in year 1, mitigating risk and creating return up front, as well as an office refi or recapitalization in year 3. By doing these 2 components, not only were we able to increase our IRR by roughly 10%, we increased our multiple and severely decreased our risk in the asset. So what is this hotel sale and office refinance? What does it look like? Let's go to the next slide. So this hotel sale is demonstrated in this graph. It's basically a flow from step 1 all the way to step 6 of where money is going and how it changes hands. So in step 1, obviously you have equity partners investing in the project. Step 2, our ownership group decided to go with a debt fund, mainly because traditional financing options such as banks wasn't really interested in a mixed use product at the time due to the hotel component. It hadn't been done in Orlando, which complements McDaniel's comment on innovation. So debt fund was the only option at the time. Step 3, obviously they built the project and paid off the GC while continuing to pay interest payments. Step 4, you see the final structure upon completion. Step 5, that is when we actually had the hotel sale occur. So owner 2 stepped in, gave funds to owner 1, and owner 1 had then the option to either repay debt fund principal, pay off the investors or sponsors, as well as a future capital need, which we may address later. Step 5B, you can now see the ownership structure present after the sale. And step 6 is the recapitalization, where we bring out debt fund A and we bring in debt fund B. So next slide. Here we see what that recapitalization looks like. Again, we're starting as a timeline. Construction loan begins. Here we took the assumption of $10 to keep it simple. Now we learned that you can apply this for any project. You just simply change out a few numbers and you can do the same thing. So we assumed an 80% loan to value on the onset. Took about 16 months to build, and then you got your certificate of occupancy. Mentioned previously, we had pre-lease, so we were just assuming about a 75-cent unlevered annual cash flow after CO. With that, taking the cap rate approach, we accumulated a value of $13.64, upon which the new lender, or that debt fund B on the previous slide, agreed to loan 75% LTV, or $10.23 of principal. With that $10.23 available, obviously we pay out the outstanding principal of debt fund A, get rid of their collateral, and we can also distribute around $2.23 to the partnership. Now, as you can tell, this is actually more than the equity originally put in the construction loan phase. And so many of this was non-taxable as it was loan proceeds. There's a certain caveat there of capital accounts, but for the most part, non-taxable proceeds. And the reason why we're able to do this is lower risk. We have a building now, and we also have higher value. We have guaranteed cash flows or contracted revenue streams that wasn't experienced previously. And just because we took more money out doesn't necessarily mean we're paying more in interest. As shown with this loan type graph, simply increasing principal doesn't mean higher debt service, as interest rate has a big effect. So that lower risk, higher value actually turned into a lower interest rate as well. And finally, with the disposition, through the hotel sale and the office refinance, we still own title to the office asset. So we assumed the same cap rate previously. Now we have an unlevered cash flow of 90 cents a year, which creates about $16.36 of value, pay out the outstanding principal, and we were able to distribute around $8 to partnership. So with that, I'll let McDaniel run with the final takeaways, knowing that this project was incredible. This project made a lot of money, as demonstrated in this portion, and a few other items. Go ahead, McDaniel.
Thanks, Zach. So today, SunTrust Plaza at Church Street Station is a vibrant, mixed-use, transit-oriented development that sets the standard for Central Florida office market rents. The execution of the revised development plan for a higher and better use for the site has created a vibrant place for downtown Orlando, ushered in new innovations for the market, capitalized on pent-up demand, and create a higher and best use for the site. Because of these factors, an even larger mixed-use tower is now planned for the adjacent site. Through Scott Staley's vision, SunTrust Plaza at Church Street Station is now positioned to bring an authentic blend of uses and return to the site to its initial use, to be a thriving gateway for downtown Orlando. On behalf of my teammates, we appreciate the time and would now like to open up the project for discussion with the jury.
I'll throw one out. Two questions. And it's a great project, great presentation, guys, first and foremost. Was the project, as it relates to height and uses, all as of right? That's my first question. And the second one is, there was a quick blurb I heard in there about pre-leasing. Was that something that was with Marriott or with some office tenants? And also, did you have a planned sale with Marriott going into the project?
Kevin,
I'll pick the first part of that, Zach. So as far as in the downtown, for as the zoning, it was well below. There's a maximum ceiling limit that's for towers in downtown Orlando, if that's the question that you're asking. So they did not exceed that, but they still did increase the density. The FAR the city was kind of behind that once they saw it was a mixed use product. And then I'll go over to refer back to Zach as far as the hotel, how that proceeded with the development.
Sure. Yeah. So after these conversations, pre-leasing, so when they originally designed this building, it was 100% speculative, but through the construction process, they were able to bring in SunTrust Bank. Obviously, the name SunTrust Plaza comes from the major tenant. And so they were the ones who took about 80% of that pre-leased space, or 83% of the total project was pre-leased. And so that was a SunTrust believed in the vision. They moved out of the adjacent building, wanting to represent this new brand of transparency and up-to-date banking. And as far as the hotel sale, they were kind of going back and forth through development. There was nothing in concrete, and they did sell to a third party who wanted the Marriott flag. But the key there was they didn't want to do hotel operations. So they really needed a partner. You know, Lincoln Property and Mason Capital, they're not super involved from a hotel operation, right? It's more of an operating investment or an active investment than real estate. And so they elected to get out once the offer was presented to them.
Great, thank you.
So there's a lot of positives about the outcome of this project, but often people can look back and say, oh, you know, what did we learn, or what might we have done differently? Is there anything here where, you know, maybe it has not gone quite as well as they had hoped, or anything that they may have learned, you know, from this project?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll take a stab at it. I mean, obviously COVID has changed significantly the way users prioritize office. The tenant here, SunTrust, now Truist, they wanted to really make a statement and a splash, and they wanted their office space to represent them as a financial firm going through this rebrand. So, you know, it's to be seen how, you know, some of the effects are gonna change. But I think that the biggest thing was just seeing how the project pivoted to a use that had a demand in a single-use hotel. It would have done very well as that use, but understanding that this is an important node for the area, that this is one of the many clusters that are going to be able to bring in the next generation of development in downtown Orlando, they need to spend a little bit more money, and they need to have a little bit more of a focus on not only returns, but also that mix of uses and interaction with the space.
This is a LEED building, correct?
It is not. It is an Energy Star certified building, but it's not LEED certified.
I was going to say, could you talk to some of the sustainability? Were there any sustainability aspects to this property? I mean, I know you talked about the glass and and the utilization of passive solar mitigation. Can you talk to anything else about sustainability?
Making use of the chilled water system was an interesting, since this being in a more temperate climate down in Orlando, obviously they needed more days of air conditioning as far as office use. But by using the chilled water system, that also was more sustainable because they didn't have to worry about having an individual unit in each of the hotel rooms, which you typically would have. So that was good from a lower energy perspective. Not necessarily innovative, but having a single core with 3 different elevator shafts in the center, and then splitting up the utilities. Not necessarily from a sustainability standpoint, but it made from a flexible use as far as the office floor plates and the hotel. Like I said, there's more reflective glass on this view that we're currently looking at. That's more, towards the traffic, and it's really kind of off the top as far as anything else, unless.
So Kevin, one other thing too is it's important that the proposed mix of uses was a little bit different. Lincoln Property had completed a project not far from here in the more residential area of downtown that included, that required a much larger garage because they needed 1 garage space per unit plus the requirements for office. With the hotel, they really were able to use valet parking in the hotel and minimize the parking impact and kind of maximize the site and be able to be a little bit more efficient with the construction of the building.
Yeah, and I'd kind of go one last thing on the innovation piece. Through the walkability and the utilization of multiple use types, they were able to reduce their carbon footprint. So that was one other key piece.
Yeah, guys, I thought you did an excellent job with your presentation, and it's a very unique project. When was this project completed? I may have missed that.
It was completed in certificate of occupancy was in July of 2019, and then tenants were occupied for about 65% of the building by October of 2029 last year.
Okay, so that overall financial strategy that involved all those different steps, I love that diagram that was taking us through all the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was very well done. And is that a strategy that you guys decided to overlay to the financial analysis, or is the ownership team planning to do something of that type, that sort, with the sale and sort of recapitalization, out in the next several years?
So I can now confirm that they were able, so they took it out to the debt markets and were just able to execute on that second recapitalization that we showed. So they did sell the hotel off and they did recapitalize. So those are we used our numbers, but those were both events that actually occurred.
Okay. All right. Good. I don't have any other questions, Maria.
All right. Thank you. Nice work, guys. So judges, before we go to the breakout room, if you will score team 10, and then after you score, we will ask the audience to stay logged in, but then come back, and I'll tell you what time to come back after the judges have scored.
have scores from all the 4 judges.
Great, thanks, Tanya. Well, we're a little ahead of time. How often does that happen? The judges will retreat now to the breakout room to deliberate. I'm going to ask everyone else to stay logged in, and then we will be back at 4 o'clock. Rejoin us at 4, stretch, get a little something to drink and eat, and we will return. Thank you. So Carrie, if you could prompt us to go to the breakout room.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's gonna probably prompt everybody to go back. So just see here.
That's okay. That's fine. All right.
All right, and then attendees are students, and you don't have to go back into your breakout room. So like Maria said, if you want to, go stretch your legs, take a break, get a libation, a coffee, adult beverage, you did a great job. Congratulations to you all. I know it's the end of the semester, and we'll see you back here in a little bit. This is Carrie. I just wanted to let you know that the judges need a little more time. So just be patient. Thank you.
Okay. We are back. I hope all the teams, if you all could turn your videos on, that would be great. So I think the teams this time have really done yourselves well. The judges were very, very impressed with all of the presentations. Some of them who have been judges before said that your presentations were the best that they've seen. So all of you did an outstanding job. I think it was incredibly difficult to choose the winners. But somebody has got to win. And so the judges have selected the winning teams. And so I am going to turn it over to them to tell you who won. And we'll start with the fourth place team. So I think Karen.
Yep. I just wanted to say you all did such an amazing job. This was not an easy decision, I think, for any of us. But the fourth place team did an exceptional job as a former New Yorker in covering the historic through the present of the I'm blanking on the name of it. I'm sitting there going Dumbo. So for team number 13, congratulations. Very, very well done. We enjoyed your presentation immensely. And we just thought you did an absolutely spectacular job. Congratulations.
Give them a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, David, I think you were going to.
Yes, I'm doing the third place.
Third place.
You know, I want to reiterate what Karen said. This is my third time doing this. I think I've done it 3 out of the 5 years. And, you know, the teams and the strength definitely have gotten significantly better each year. And it's harder and harder to judge. And the third place team, you know, is team 16, West Half Street in DC. You know, as a DC person and a DC developer, you know, it really made me feel that I was, you know, at a Nats game. You know, there were really great graphics and visuals. And, you know, if I was somewhat younger and single than I am right now, it's, you know, a place that I would want to live. So thank you. And it was a really good job on a project, you know, that I know well. So thank you.
So 16, thank you. So Michael.
Okay. Yes. I am talking about the runner-up, and this is always a challenging place to be because it's down to 2, and you know, I'm a track and field person. I ran track at Maryland, and I made the analogy with my other judges and the Maryland team that this was a photo finish. I mean, it was a lean at the finish line. They had to go to the photo, and Charmaine, you came up like an eyebrow just too short, and you were the second place team. And I have to tell you, personally, I'm very proud of the work you did. I'm a Philadelphia native. I'm proud of the work that you did going. I understand you go to Jefferson. You had the biggest challenge because you were a one-person team, and I think my only suggestions to you, because you had complete competence and understanding of all of the work that you did and your presentation, and because you were a one-person team, you could have varied your presentation with a few more graphics and things to help vary the presentation, because it was just you that was talking for the entire time. But your delivery, everything was very, very well done, and your knowledge and grasp of all of the aspects of the transaction. I congratulate you for your finish, and good luck to you in your career.
Well, I guess that leaves me. I'm the rookie judge, so I get the one with not too much excitement behind it. But you gentlemen should be very, very excited. Team 10. It was a fabulous project. The project in and of itself, if you just read it, speaks volumes in terms of an overall deal, an overall plan. But the way you presented it, we all, the 4 of us as judges, were very impressed, especially with the financials and the way you broke it down into the chart. Even as a New Yorker, I thought you were a little quick, but I thought that your chart spoke volumes in terms of getting us through the financial package here. And clearly the deal itself was a grand slam home run. And the work that you guys did in terms of going out to third parties to pick up information where a lot of it may not have been at your fingertips was impressive as well. So congratulations to you guys for the victory. But I must say, across the board, again, my first time doing this, all of the presentations were tremendous. They were well thought. They were well put together. Everybody needs a tweak here or there, but you all as groups should be very proud of the work you've put in here. Congratulations, everybody.
Yes. Let's give them a hand of applause.
Maria, maybe we could get Auburn to unmute screen and just say a couple of words. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Auburn.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yes.
Thanks. I'll not speak for my team, but speak for myself. This was a great learning opportunity, you know, being a student and going out and, you know, trying to figure out what the projects are going on. And we have to give a lot of thanks for Colvin, obviously, for having this program and putting it out there for students. I think it's an incredibly valuable learning opportunity as a student, and also have to give a big kudos to our advisors as well. Jay was our faculty advisor and really kind of honed in a lot of, we called it herding cats to get us to the point that we were at. So we just have to give a lot of credit to everybody. So do truly appreciate it. And we're really, since we were the last, we're kind of disappointed. We're looking forward to seeing the video feed to watch everybody else's presentation too. So.
Yeah, and
go ahead, McDaniel.
Zach, I have age over you, so I get to talk next. Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for the time. I think our team really pushed each other, and that was the first I heard that there was a team with only one person. So Charmaine, it's a shame we're not there together, and I would, you know, buy you a drink and shake your hand. So congratulations on getting this far, and thank you so much for the judges for their insight.
Agreed. Echoing everything Kevin and McDaniel said. Hopefully someday, you know, we can all meet. If y'all are ever in North Carolina, Louisiana, or Kansas and Nebraska, love to get you a drink and chat some real estate. We kind of end things around here with War Eagle, but appreciate everybody's time. So.
Great.
Hi.
Thank you all. You know, it's a shame that we have the pandemic and we couldn't all go over to the hotel across the street from the University of Maryland campus and celebrate like we usually do. We always have a really good time, and the team members get to meet each other and to talk. This is our first time doing this virtually, so thank you so much for being patient with us as we work through some of the technology. But just remember, you made it this far and you beat out 16 other teams, and that is really saying something. You really rose to the top, and I would encourage you to encourage some of your schoolmates to participate next year, and hopefully we will be able to go over and have a nice reception like we usually do. I also want to thank the judges for hanging in there with us. You all are all great professionals, and your analysis was really good. And thanks for hanging in there with us for 4 hours. And I want to thank everyone else that came to view and hear the presentations. We really appreciate your support. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to say before we leave. If any of the other teams want to say something, you have the floor now.
I just wanted to quickly say that Carrie and myself will be emailing you your award letters. So please look out for those and return them back quickly, because then the university shuts down for a couple weeks. So if we can get those back before winter break, you're likely to get that money in 2021 instead of 2022. So thank you.
Yeah. And remember, you do get a monetary prize, so that's always nice to have. So, all right.
I just had one thing, and that's, is there any team members that want to say anything?
Yeah, I want to say something. I want to thank two of my partners very much, like for this competition. We are all three from a dual major program. We are both Master of Architecture and Master of Real Estate. So we didn't come from a very financial background. So I think this the way that we have been trying to introduced this project is very from a unique way. And we did try our best, like she said. I think we are really proud of us, and I really learned a lot from my Aaron and Jajin a lot, and our mentor come today as well. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you.
You guys did a terrific job.
Yeah, and to follow that, I just wanted to thank our advisor, Jeff. He really helped us a lot through this process. And then also thank you to the Virginia Tech program in real estate. They do a really great job of preparing us for stuff like this and also the postgraduate world. So thank you.
All right. And Charmaine, do you want to say anything? You deserve to say something today, girl.
Sure. This was an awesome experience and a lot of tough work. And I'd like to thank my advisor, Troy, because I've barely bombarded him with so many emails in doing this because I was alone, but I wouldn't change anything. My project was about a train shed and I just loved it. And I thought, why not tell the story of it the best way I could? So thank you. And thank you, judges, as well.
Good for you. Stay with your passion. Always stay with your passion. Good for you.
Absolutely.
And so I just wanted to make a couple of points. So just so everybody knows that it was Columbia University, Thomas Jefferson University, Virginia Tech, our only undergraduate team, and Auburn University. And if you all could try to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd like to share our press release and we'll issue that out on LinkedIn, and it's a great way to repost for yourself and get some exposure. I really enjoyed getting to know all of you through the process, and congratulations and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.
All right.